Let's stay with developments on this and speak to SABC News correspondent Sherwin Bryce-Pease, who's in New York and joins us live now. So Sherwin, as predicted, Council failing again to find unity, to find consensus and pass a resolution that could secure humanitarian aid into Gaza as matters now shift to the UN, to the General Assembly. I mean, let's remind the viewers of how matters played out last night and what the value proposition in the General Assembly is.
The Council again, Bongiwe, demonstrating what a lack of cohesion, a lack of consensus, a lack of unity provides for conflicts around the world. We saw this lack of unity play itself out quite visually in terms of the war in Ukraine, when Russia deployed its vetoes despite broad consensus on ending the war in the Council. And so you see these divisions play themselves out again on a different context, right? The Palestinian-Israeli conflict and the lack of unity there. The United States putting forward its resolution. It was vetoed by Russia and China, the United Arab Emirates also voting no. It did manage to get 10 votes in favor, but those vetoes telling the story here. Then, of course, the Russians put their draft, which they introduced 24 hours before, calling for that immediate ceasefire, and only managing to get 4 votes in favor from Gabon, United Arab Emirates, Russia and China. And as you know, you need a minimum of 9 votes in favor of a resolution for it to pass. So, like the Ukraine file, the Israeli-Palestinian conflict now goes to the General Assembly. That emergency special session is underway. We've already heard from the Palestinian ambassador. The Israeli ambassador is speaking now. I can tell you very briefly what Riyad Mansour, the Palestinian envoy, told the Assembly, quote, "Vote to stop the killing. Vote for humanitarian aid, for people's survival depends on it. Choose justice, not vengeance. Choose peace, not more wars. Please save lives. Save lives. Vote for our draft resolution." Essentially, there is a draft resolution before the General Assembly that calls for an immediate ceasefire. It calls for a rescission of the order telling Palestinians in the north of Gaza to evacuate. It calls for unhindered humanitarian access and essential services to be provided to Palestinians. So that's a draft resolution that the entire membership of the United Nations, unlike the 15 members in the Security Council, the entire membership of the United Nations will have a say. The Israeli ambassador, Gilad Erdan, speaking at this moment, Bongiwe, he said that Israel is not at war with the Palestinians, they're at war with Hamas. He detailed the atrocities that were inflicted on Israeli civilians. He talked about butchering, he talked about the rapes that happened, bodies burnt, heads, he said, that were smashed to a pulp. And he said also, that, talked about the pain associated as Israeli families wait to hear the fate of the almost 200 hostages that are being held by Hamas. And of course, you're reporting that some 50 hostages have been killed by those Israeli airstrikes. Certainly goes to the heart of the matter that certainly faces many Israelis. The World Health Organization, of course, also speaking to the humanitarian emergency that is unfolding in Gaza, as we've been reporting for some time now. Listen to WHO spokesperson Tariq Jassarevic on just what is at stake here. Watch.
We need safe and sustained access. When we say safe access, we need security guarantees that our material and our workers will not be attacked during the transport and distribution of these supplies. So far, we have not been given any guarantees for north of Gaza. And what we really plead for is for those who are involved in this conflict to provide those guarantees to us that also hospitals in north of Gaza can receive necessary supplies. Fuel is needed for 2 things. Fuel is needed to have electricity in hospitals. You cannot have any hospital running without electricity and having a light. You need a light to treat patients. You need electricity for surgical theaters. You need electricity for incubators, for dialysis machines. So we need fuel. Fuel is also needed to desalinate the water, so hospitals have a clean water. Clean water is of vital importance in hospitals to keep patients safe and provide health services.
So, Bongiwe, you did ask me about the value proposition of this General Assembly effort, right? GA resolutions are not legally binding like Security Council resolutions, but it does give us a snapshot. It gives us a global temperature of what the entire UN membership, all 193 member states, want to happen here. You saw what happened with the Ukraine resolution, 141 countries demanding that Russia withdraw its troops. Did that happen? No, but it certainly gave us an indication of where countries stood in that regard. So a similar proposition here. What will countries say? Where will they fall on this divide? That debate ongoing, and we certainly wait to see when that vote will happen.
And Sherwin, when will the Assembly vote on the draft resolution before it?
Yeah, we've just looked at the speakers list, Bonge, where there are 108 countries expected to speak. That process needs to play itself out, we imagine, before a vote will take place. So South Africa, for example, will only speak 62nd. That might happen later tonight, maybe early tomorrow. So we expect some sort of vote by Friday. But it certainly doesn't speak to the urgency on the ground. We just received the latest bulletin from the Office of the Coordination for Humanitarian Affairs, and I'll just give you a quick snapshot of the figures. Over 7,000 have been killed now in Gaza from those Israeli airstrikes. 68% are women and children. That number was at 62% earlier this week. 68%, over 700 deaths in just the last 24 hours. The Rafah border crossing had reopened again yesterday. We are told that 8 trucks out of a possible 20 trucks made it across. So in total, Bonga, where only 62 trucks have made it into Gaza since Saturday. And here's a figure that might hit home. Over 500 trucks entered the enclave prior to this conflict every day. And over the last few days, only 62 trucks, never mind the lack of humanitarian aid that hadn't been going in for weeks since that October 7th attack by Hamas in Israel.
It speaks to the desperate situation, Sherwin, that is on the ground. If you think about 700 deaths in 24 hours, that is quite the number. And as the talks continue on your part of the world, a situation that is really desperate is unfolding in the Middle East. But let's leave it there with you, Sherwin, and see what happens then a little later on. That is our correspondent, Bryce-Pease.